some more reaction now with CASAC. The executive director at CASAC is Lawson Naidoo. Mr. Naidoo, thank you so much for making time for us. So the DA, the EFF, the UDM, and probably likely the ATM are rejecting this report. What's your reaction, having heard from Advocate Kholeka, Gcaleka?
Good afternoon, Clement. Thank you. Look, I think the report sets out very clearly the issues that were within the purview of the Public Protector in terms of the Executive Members Ethics Act and the Code. She confined her investigation to three distinct issues that she sets out in the report, two of which relate to President Ramaphosa and the third one relating to personnel within the South African Police Service. I think many of the questions that have arisen around this will form the substance of investigations by other agencies. But we must note that the Public Protector is constrained in terms of the legislation and framework surrounding the office to only look at matters within the Executive Members Act and other similar breaches. So on those three counts, I think the report, which I haven't read in full yet, just the summary, but seems to be quite clear that the issues were considered, that no conflict of interest was found, and that in terms of the issue of paid work, there was substantial discussion of that issue, what constitutes work, what constitutes paid work, the purpose behind that prohibition in the Constitution and our law, and no evidence was found that the President was carrying out work, whereas this was considered to be an investment in the farm, as many others in society and many other members of Parliament and members of the Executive hold investments that produce financial returns.
Yes, and I actually remember the independent panel report. They also had their own interpretation of what paid work is, and they had indicated that even at the time when the President made his own submissions, he adopted what they thought was a narrow view of the words paid work. They think that the words paid work mean for financial gain or reward, whether as an employee or as self-employed. But as you say, the Public Protector having her own interpretation and saying, but was this person actively involved in the operations of that enterprise or not? And in this case, she says not so by the President. Let's talk now about the people the President works with closely. You have the Public Protector now finding that his head of security, Wally Ruoder, abused his position in launching an off-the-books investigation using police resources after that money was stolen. The question now is, what should the President's approach be? Yes, the SAPS will have to look at what action they will take against Ruoder, but are you expecting that the President should also do something and maybe have an approach to this person who works so closely with him?
Indeed, if I could just come back to the previous points, I think the other important thing to recall from what the acting Public Protector said is that this prohibition on paid work is to ensure that members of the Executive are not distracted from their primary responsibilities by their outside interests. And in this case, there was no evidence that the President was distracted from executing his constitutional responsibilities because of his interest in the Phala Phala farm. But coming to your question about people around the President, I think the finding in relation to Major General Wally Ruoder was that he proceeded to investigate, having been informed of the burglary at Phala Phala by the President. He proceeded to investigate without a case number being established, and certainly that the involvement of the Presidential Protection Unit in following up on those investigations, not reporting it to his direct superior, being the National Commissioner of the SAPS, but informally reporting to others that he breached his SAPS duties in that regard, and therefore recommended that the National Commissioner take appropriate steps. One would assume that in the light of this finding, Major General Ruda's position as the head of the Presidential Protection Unit should be called into question now. And I would not be surprised if the President would place him on precautionary leave, subject to the outcome of whatever processes the SAPS puts in place.
Yeah. Does this close the Phala Phala chapter? I mean, must the President relax now, you think? I mean, he's dodged the bullet this time around, but you still have the Reserve Bank and even the Hawks still investigating.
Indeed, and that's why I highlighted and emphasized earlier that we must appreciate the narrow context in which the Office of the Public Protector was empowered to investigate very discrete aspects of the whole Phala Phala saga. There are other aspects, as you rightly point out, being looked at by the Reserve Bank, by the Hawks, and ultimately, I suppose, once a docket is presented to the National Prosecuting Authority, that they would similarly have to take a decision. So this matter is far from closed, and one hopes that the other law enforcement agencies will speed up the finalization of their reports, so that we can have finality to this and the appropriate steps taken.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the lessons here for President Cyril Ramaphosa? Yes, he hasn't been found to have violated what the ATM had suggested he has when they complained to the public protector, but I imagine there are lessons you can take from this so that the next time, God forbid, something similar happens, the approach is different so that you avoid the speculation that has always been there, that something sinister may have transpired here.
Indeed, and I think the President did himself no favors by being so coy in his responses when the story first broke, about not coming forward and taking the nation into his confidence and explaining the exact circumstances, not just of the burglary, but of his interest in the farm. I think had he done that, this matter would not have dragged out for as long as it has. And could have been resolved much earlier. So I think the President must take some responsibility for responding in a manner that necessitated these various investigations. I'm not suggesting that these investigations were unnecessary, but they could have been probably a lot easier and completed a lot more quickly had some of that information been forthcoming at an earlier stage.
Yeah. What about the fact that the money that came into South Africa that was used for these buffaloes wasn't registered, and the fact that the buffaloes themselves have still not been collected, Lawson, lest we forget? I mean, do you think...
Indeed.
I mean, does this still raise... Because, yes, the public protector has found this way, the President is cleared, but there are questions that are still lingering around this money that this person used to purchase the buffaloes. We now know it wasn't registered, but even more bizarrely, the same buffaloes that he spent so much money on have still not been collected.
Well, indeed, as I say, there are many questions still to be answered before we can, close the file on this saga, and hopefully those will be answered when the other reports that you referred to from the Reserve Bank, as well as from the Hawks and the NPA are finalized, because those questions remain, and we haven't had satisfactory answers to those issues.
Yeah.
So as I say, there's a way to go before the full picture emerges around all of the circumstances surrounding what happened in relation to that burglary. The acting public protector has conducted her work, which is limited, as I said, to certain specific aspects of that whole saga.
All right. Lawson Naidoo, Executive Director at CASAC, thank you for making time for us this afternoon.